Hey everyone, welcome back to the 4th Magnite devlog. This devlog is going to be all about getting some villagers and NPCs into our game. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you're not subscribed to the channel yet and you want to stay updated on when I post new Magnite devlogs and other videos, please do consider subscribing because it really does help out the channel. Anyway, with that, let's get into the video. Okay guys, so before we go ahead and get started with the new feature, I just want to show you one quick crafting recipe that I've added since the last video. So if we go into our crafting menu, we can see we now have an option for a chest. Now this chest costs 20 wood and I have 21, so I can go ahead and craft this and we get a chest in our inventory. And just like the mills, I can go ahead and place this down and I can open this chest, and as you can see I'll be presented with 12 inventory slots, and I can go ahead and put my items into this. And if I go ahead and collect a couple more items, you'll see that we are able to put all of these items into the chest. And the best part about this is that if I go ahead and leave the game and then I come back into the same game and I go back to the chest, we can see that all of our items are still in here. So this is really awesome, but I think it's time that we get started with this village. So this is going to be quite a time-lapse heavy devlog because while I was building out these village systems, I didn't really do any progress updates and mostly just recorded time-lapse. So the first thing that I had to consider for the start of this village was the art style, and whether I was going to go for more 3D looking houses such as Stardew Valley or more 2D looking houses. And I've been following this game for quite some time now called Archvale, which is a top-down bullet hell style game, and I really like the houses from that game, so I decided to take inspiration from those and make houses of a similar style. And for me, who is not a very artistic person, it's really important when making pixel art to find some reference images to get inspired by. So the next big decision that I was going to have to make that would affect a lot of decisions that were going to be made later down the road was whether I was going to take the approach of letting the village be randomly generated. So I just write a script that takes a bunch of different props, such as houses and wells and whatnot, and it just makes a village from those props. And on the other hand, the slightly less time efficient option of designing the villages by hand. And I decided to go for the second option for one main reason, that if I am in control of how the village looks, then ultimately I can make the villages make a little bit more sense than any village that was just randomly made. For example, when you have a house, it kind of makes sense that there is another house next to it of around the same size, rather than something like a town hall or some sort of shop that has a different color palette to the house. And it's small things like that that I ultimately think will lead to better villages. If however you disagree with me and you feel like randomly generating villages is a better way, then please by all means let me know down in the comment section, as I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And also let me know if you agree with my reasoning. So the next thing that I had to think about was what the use of these villages was actually going to be. And I've mentioned in previous devlogs that I want to have some shops where you can buy and sell items. More specifically, as of writing this, my ideas for shops are to have a blacksmith where you'll be primarily selling and buying ores and maybe some tools as well. Then a farming shop, which you guessed it, will be selling all sorts of farming supplies such as seeds and watering cans and other stuff like that. And then also a house shop and large building shop where you can buy blueprints for different structures such as houses and maybe barns. Basically any large structure that wouldn't really make sense to be able to craft with the crafting system and hold in your inventory, such as a house, since it doesn't really make sense to craft a house. And on these blueprints that you buy, it will tell you the required items that you actually need to build the house. So once you buy the blueprint, you won't actually just be able to place it down like you would with something like a mill, but you'll actually have to make sure that you have all of the required raw materials such as wood and rocks and whatnot. And I also have an idea for a magic shop in mind where you can buy all sorts of magical items such as potions and spell books and whatnot. And the reason for the shop will become more apparent over the next few devlogs. So the next thing that I needed to consider were NPCs. And if you remember in the last devlog, I spoke about how I wanted to create NPCs with more personality. One of those things that I mean by this is, for example, a blacksmith NPC who is not just constantly stuck in his shop, but instead he will actually own a house in the village, and at a certain time of day he will leave his house and walk over to the blacksmith shop, and then later that day he will leave the shop and return to his home. Now, speaking of the houses, the next thing I had to make was a system to actually get in and out of these houses. And the way I did this was by making a door script that checks for collisions with the door, and if you collide with the door, you'll get teleported to a room that the door correlates to, and it wasn't difficult since it's just if you enter this collider, then get teleported to this other room, and if you collide with the door in that room, get teleported to outside of the other door. So then I went through the job of making props for these rooms, such as paintings and beds and chairs and tables and whatnot. I believe this isn't in the time lapse, but I will be showing it in the end result later. So the final thing that I was working on was the beginnings of a shop system. So the shop that I've been working on is the blacksmith. And the idea for the blacksmith is that you will buy ores such as gold and equipment such as pickaxes and whatnot, and you can sell items to the blacksmith. Now I'm just still deciding on what type of items you can sell to the blacksmith, and if you have any suggestions, please let me know down below, because I want the items that you sell to the blacksmith to be different to the items you buy from him, so that you can't just buy items from him and then sell them back to him. The other idea that I have when it comes to selling is that before you sell items to the shop, you must reach a certain skill level in that field. So for example, before you can sell items to the blacksmith, you must first be level 5 with your blacksmithing skill. And hopefully what this does is it will encourage players to prioritize gathering items in the early game rather than just immediately selling everything to a shop to try and make lots of money. But once again, if you have any other suggestions or stuff that you disagree with that I've just mentioned, please let me know down in the comments. Anyways, I think I've been speaking for long enough now. I'm going to go ahead and show you all of this progress. Okay guys, so as you could probably see from that time lapse, I put quite a lot of time into the drawing of this village, so I hope you like it. So as you can see, if we come up here, we can see we have this village. And one thing that I didn't actually mention in the video, but I think I'm going to mention it here because it's pretty cool, is that I actually have a script that I wrote that when this village gets spawned, it will basically draw a circle will get drawn around the village, and what that circle, and then basically any like environmental pieces like these trees or the rocks that are inside of that circle will get destroyed. So we should never see any environment pieces in this village unless I explicitly say that there must be. So without further ado, let's start a little village tour. So as you can see up here, we have some little village houses, and currently the only one that you can go into is this one. And as you can see on the inside here, we have this painting, we have a table and chair, and we have a bed. Now, if you guys have any other ideas for any other things that I can add inside this house, please let me know down in the comments. Yeah, so, and then hopefully over the next couple weeks, I'll be able to draw a couple more variations of villager houses so that we have a bit more variety in the village. And then the other house that we have down here is the blacksmith. And inside the blacksmith, we see we have this little anvil, we have some furnaces, and we also have the blacksmith and his table. And this blacksmith will actually come into the blacksmith hut here when the game starts. And I haven't programmed it so that he'll leave yet, so he'll just be sitting here forever. But yeah, I'll try and get some footage of him walking into his house now on the screen. And if I go ahead and I click on his table, we can see we get this new blacksmith shop UI. And as you can see, we're currently on the buy tab, and currently the only two things that he's selling is some coal ore and some gold ore. And I can go ahead and click on these, and as you can see, we'll get some coal ore in our inventory, and the same thing goes for gold. If we come over to the sell tab, basically the way I have this set up is that you'll be able to put an item into this buy slot here, and then it will value that item here, and then it will tell you how much, and then there'll be a little button down here which will be the button that will be used to sell. And I haven't got that functionality quite set up yet, but I'll definitely have that ready for the next devlog. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for the progress that I've been making over the last 2 weeks. Apologies that this devlog was a little bit shorter than I usually make these. It was just because I was pretty busy with other stuff other than this game over the last couple weeks. Anyway guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time.